Hi, it's John, and welcome to the channel. Great to have you along today. I've got a special guest with me today on the channel. Of course, I do have my big blue mug of coffee, which always kind of flashes in and out of the screen whenever I do these interviews. Coffee tasting very sweet today for sure. And as you know, we've got a big event coming up this coming weekend at the Alberta Legislature from 4 to 6 p.m. Big independence rally. I am Alberta. Make sure you go on your social media and you promote it as much as possible and make sure you're there. Our guest today would like to be there, but unfortunately, he's a long way away. Generally, when I interview or I'm being interviewed by this man, he's about 26 kilometers from where I'm sitting right now. But right now, he is a long way away. He's written a book on Western independence and Alberta independence called The Sovereigntist Handbook. Link in the description. Of course, I'm talking about Cory Morgan of the Western Standard and the Cory Morgan Show. Cory, welcome to the program.
All right. Well, thanks, John. Always happy to be here.
Well, I mentioned off the top that you're a little bit away from me right now. In fact, I think you're nine time zones, is it? You're 9 hours ahead of me right now. So I'm talking to you at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's now 10 o'clock. Are you in Tel Aviv?
I'm in Tel Aviv right now. Yeah, we're moving up by the Golan Heights tomorrow, but still in Tel Aviv for now.
I want to ask you about that near the end. I don't want to get into it too deep. I understand you're there with the Western Standard in Israel, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the independence movement. We've talked about this before. We've got a big event coming up this weekend. I don't think you're going to be there. Is that correct?
I'm afraid not, no. And I was supposed to speak at another one, and I still feel terrible about that. I canceled that. That's tonight, I believe, in Calgary. But this trip came up suddenly, and I couldn't avoid it. But all the same, it looks like a lot of great independent stuff happening. So I'll be watching enthusiastically from afar.
I'll actually be going to the one. It's Act Now. I'll be going to that one. I'm going to go to that one tonight as well. I'm going to be seeing Mitch Sylvester and Dennis Modry will be there. I was hoping to meet you, and every time I get a chance to meet you, we seem to be going in different directions. I didn't think I'd miss you in Israel, but let me ask you about this. You did a quick video on the weekend. And I've been amazed at the way things have been going with the independence movement. I thought through the summer it would start lagging. People would lose interest in it. I think you found as well that it's got some kind of a momentum going here, and that I'm still feeling really optimistic about things. And I get the feeling you're feeling that way as well.
Exactly. And I'm happily surprised. As you said, I was sort of thinking it was going to slow down. I mean, I was always optimistic, but it has its ups and downs. And I figured, okay, it's going to have a hard time kind of getting rolling again in fall and filling those rooms. But I did a couple of speaking events I was a guest at, and I mean, the rooms were packed. And these are small towns, but relative to the size of the town, these are enthusiastic crowds. I don't know if I mentioned it on the video, but at the one I did in Okotoks recently, when it packed a room of 90 people, they expected 30 to 50 for a chapter meeting. And when the host asked how many people were at their first meeting ever, I'd say almost half of the room raised their hands, and that really got me excited. When we're seeing new faces coming out to these in fall. There hasn't been a particular event to inflame people. There's lots and a cumulative amount of a lot of things going on to bring people out. But it's just giving me a feeling of strength and momentum that I didn't quite expect, and I'm happy to see. And I'm just really hoping that rally really draws people out because it'll make an impression.
We really need a lot of people out there. I was talking with Darren from the Alberta Prosperity Project earlier today. I think you mentioned in your video on the weekend as well, they've got buses going. So there's buses from around the province, not a lot of them right now, but a new one has been booked from Fort McMurray. So if you want to go from Fort McMurray into Edmonton, go to the Alberta Prosperity Project website. I'll put a link in the description, and you can book from Fort McMurray and go to Edmonton on Saturday this week. I mentioned in the intro here, Cory, that you wrote a book on this, The Sovereigntist Handbook, charting the course to Western independence. I know that I think it's doing pretty good for you now, probably since this movement has started growing over the last year or so. And in there, and actually, if you actually look on Amazon and you read the description of it, it says, Western separatism described as primitive and confused, groping for a platform and searching for a leader. Here we are over 40 years later, and the statement is as true as ever. Do you still feel that way?
I do, in the sense, though I'm seeing much more of an organization out of the APP than we've ever seen before. They're putting together a fantastic ground game. I've really been impressed with them, and I always got to qualify that I'm not a member of the APP, and if they screw up, I'm going to hold their feet to the fire just as much as any group. But I really think they've been doing an excellent job out there. So that part of it is not quite as accurate as it was when I wrote that book 2 years ago. There wasn't
Yeah.
quite an organization doing that. There's still not an outstanding figure representing the movement yet. I mean, there's some great people speaking for it, Dennis, Mitch, and Jeff doing their work out there. But there's no particular person. If somebody's going to point at who's the head of this movement, who's the face of this movement, that person hasn't emerged yet. I've talked about that in past videos too. I think it's kind of almost an advantage and a disadvantage.
Yeah.
A solitary leader can bring a whole movement down. But at the same time, getting more of a singular face, whoever it may be, helps for consistency in messaging, assuming the messaging's good, and can help unify the movement. Though it's not terribly divided, I think, right now anyways. So it's kind of interesting. It's doing well without a particular leader in it. And maybe, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just see how things keep going as they are.
Well, if you haven't been out to one of the meetings that Cory was talking about, they're happening about 4 or 5 every week. So there'll certainly be one coming through your area. I've been out to a number of them myself. So I'm wondering what you're thinking of. Right now, we're being held up on this. The question that was put out, I'll read it for you here. Do we agree that Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province of Canada? It's kind of being held up right now. Do you think this question will be found constitutional? And what do you think happens if it isn't considered constitutional?
Yeah, well, they're both big questions. I
Yeah.
mean, I think by its very nature, it's sort of not constitutional. It's asking to exit the Constitution. There's no part of the Constitution that gives a mechanism to do that. So I think theoretically on that alone, a judge could say it's not constitutional. I think part of what the rationale for those putting this to the court, though, was that this might clash with Indigenous rights. I've done videos and a lot of discussion on that already.
Yeah.
I strongly believe it doesn't. But the courts are going to take into mind how this will ripple all the way across the country. If they rule that it's unconstitutional, well, they're also telling Quebec that they can't go as well. And no government's had the courage to say Quebec's not allowed to choose to go. Are they really going to try to claim that now? And as for what would happen if they did say that, I think Alberta would have to emulate Quebec, because I know exactly what Quebec would say if that ruling came down. They say, well, we don't really care what you think.
Yeah.
When we hold our referendum, and we will hold it despite you, we're going to move on as per the Clarity Act and do our thing. So I feel Alberta should respond the same way. I'm not talking about perhaps Premier Smith taking an independent stance, but sort of saying consistent to her stance of that this is the sort of thing that if Albertans enough of them want it, it should go to a question on a ballot so they can choose for themselves as to what's going to happen in the future. So we'll see where that goes.
I was thinking before I contacted you, or we contacted each other, I guess, just a few minutes ago, I'm thinking this is a very dangerous thing that the Alberta independence movement is doing here. When it comes to Canada's perspective, very dangerous. And I'm wondering, if we start moving ahead with this, what do you think is coming down the road? Should we get the signatures, which I think will happen, and a referendum question is finally, that referendum question, if it's considered constitutional, ends up on a ballot? What do you think's coming down the road, and how should the independence movement be prepared? You wrote a book on kind of charting this course. Did you ever get this far when it came to... Yeah.
My book sort of stopped at the point of saying we've got to get the mechanism for a referendum.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm due to get an updated copy.
Yeah. Yes. Another
point.
chapter or two, Cory, for sure.
Yeah. And we've hit that point, so it's much more uncharted now and getting beyond it. Canada and federalists within Alberta and outside will, of course, fight against this tooth and nail any way they possibly can. How they fight it, they're going to have to be really, really careful. I've said repeatedly, too, I don't think Alberta is at the level, if a vote were held tomorrow, that they would go. But I think the momentum is moving towards it. And if things don't change, it will reach that level and pass it. If it's a belligerent anti-independence campaign, if it's insulting to Albertans, if it's derogatory, they will increase the probability of a yes vote actually beginning to happen. Going down a speculative road, and it's purely guessing, but I think Premier Smith really wants to see a referendum. I don't think she wants to see a yes vote necessarily. But politically, if Alberta held a referendum, we had independence discussion for months and months, a campaign on it, and then we came out of it with 45%. Boy, as a premier, she's sure going to have a heck of a lot more leverage when she's dealing with Ottawa after that point. Uh, if a 51% vote comes in, well, we're all in for a pretty wild ride as a nation.
And I would guess if it doesn't come in at 50% plus one, she can put this in the rear view mirror and move on to an election, which I think is 2 years away now, and finally kind of put all of this separatist talk behind her. Let me ask you about this because do you hold out any hope that there may be some major projects that the Carney government will okay, that we'll finally see the government, which could make a decision on a pipeline that goes across borders into, say, British Columbia, even though Premier David Eby has said he doesn't want that to happen. I think the federal government has the constitutional right to do that. It's the provinces that control the natural resources within their borders, but the government controls, I think, what crosses the borders, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, in fact, the government has the constitutional obligation
Yes,
to
yes.
facilitate that sort of infrastructure just as much as they would with a railroad track or a highway. And they've abdicated it. They've made it pretty clear they will not exercise their constitutional responsibilities. If they're already saying they're not going to do that, I don't see it changing, even if they realize that this is the sort of thing that's pushing Alberta more towards an independence stance. They're ideologically driven. Carney is just as insanely net zero obsessed as Trudeau was. This is again a religious like ideology for
Uh-huh.
those people. They will not back down from this. They think they're saving the world, and so I can't see a project is particularly happening fast enough, even if he started leaning towards it and offered more weasel words and brought us a little closer. Until people see ground moving, nobody's believing anything out of this government. And I don't see any indication he's going to get into a scrap with Eby and with some of those indigenous bands and step into the mire. At best, he's just going to keep doing what he's doing, which is pretending he somewhat supports it while not actually supporting it in reality, which is just going to frustrate more and more people. And that's part of the driver, I think, that this didn't calm down with time. People didn't start to say over summer, well, we'll see if maybe he's going to change some things. Maybe he's going to embrace the conservative things. He's going to be pragmatic. He's going to move away from the old Trudeau status quo. It's pretty clear he isn't. And people don't think he is. They don't think he's going to. And that's why that independence movement is not sagging. It's growing.
What do you say to the people who are kind of sitting on the fence right now? You would like to see an independent Alberta, and they're just sitting there wondering, maybe looking for that one tipping point. What would you suggest would be the thing that would kind of push them over the edge?
I guess take a day and meditate on it. Look at things and ask yourself what scenario you could see that's going to change the status quo. Because I think the people sitting on the edge are frustrated and upset, but somewhere in the back of their mind, they think something might change this direction, might change this balance of power in Canada. And if you just take some time, contemplate, think of it, look at the political system, look at the political trends, and you come to that realization that most of us who are independent supporters already have come to, and that we've either got to accept that we're always going to be a colony of Canada or we've got to move to independence. There is no third option.
What do you say? I don't know that I asked you this question the last time we spoke here on my channel. I've talked to Mitch Sylvester a couple of times, Dennis Modry, Jeff Rath, and others. And I'm sure that I asked you this one, but how do you get around the patriotism thing? That's the thing I think that can get in the way of people saying yes to independence in Alberta. It's a tough thing to fight, Canadian patriotism.
Absolutely, and it's real, and that's something that as advocates we've always got to be cognizant of. Those of us who have gotten over that aspect must remember if somebody still has that strong patriotic feeling and you get in their face, they're going to dig their heels in more. You've got to work carefully with people, and again, they've got to let their cold rationality overcome their feeling of patriotism, and that takes some time. It takes careful discussions. That's why I was talking about with people, they should take a day and really dwell on it and really think on it. And they should be encouraged to do that. And just as cold as it might sound, try to remember that Canada will still be there the day after. We're just talking about changing the contract. We're talking about changing the agreement. Your Aunt Margaret's still going to be over in Toronto, and Uncle Eddie's still going to be in Newfoundland, and everybody's still going to be there.
And we'll all still be friends.
Sure. I mean, one of the analogies I used at another meeting, is some truth to it, is with my ex-wife. I get along much better with her now that we're divorced than I did while we were together. So
Yeah.
sometimes the relationship can actually be better later on. But it's a tough nut to crack because, emotion trumps rationality. And we just got to be patient yet constantly working on people, I guess, and moving them towards that.
Cory, the big event coming up on Saturday, as I've mentioned, at the legislature 4 to 6 in Edmonton. I'm going to be emceeing the event. I'm excited. So that's going to be,
Great.
yeah. Yeah,
It's another one I'm so sorry I'm going to be missing. I'm
yeah.
going to be just getting back into Calgary through Amsterdam. I think if I tried hard enough, I might make it up there the last minute, but I'd be exhausted and sort of a waste of space, I'm afraid, on that day. So
Well,
just missing it.
you have a safe trip back here. Just before you go, don't want to get too deep into this. I know you've had a long day, pretty busy where you are right now in Tel Aviv, but what what has you in Israel right now?
Well, it is a media group that's out here. And as I kind of said earlier, no, I'm not sponsored by Netanyahu or the Israeli government or anything
Yeah.
like that. But we are going out and seeing directly some of the sites, some of the things that happen. It's been a tough one. Today, I was at the Nova Festival site where the slaughter of all those kids happened. Uh, I was also at some kibbutzes where more of that happened. You can still see the bullet holes and the waste that was done. I'm going to be going up to Golan Heights. I watched that horrific 47-minute video.
I've heard about it. Yeah.
It's going to scar me. But the goal of this, I guess, is just to get media members. We're not being told what to say or what to conclude, but to see firsthand. Here's what's happening. Here's what's on the ground. Here's people you can interact with. You're not some controlled environment. And certainly the intent of this is to try and get more of a favorable view as to where Israel's standing within this. But we're left to make our own conclusions. So it's a 6-day sort of junket around the country in a few different spots and meeting with a number of different people to learn more about this. And it is a very, very complicated situation. So the more I can learn here, I can learn far more here than in 1,000 books. On the issue.
You got there right after the ceasefire was signed. What's the feeling there? Are they optimistic? Are the Israelis optimistic that this will hold? I'm never optimistic when it comes to a group like Hamas, but how are they feeling about this now?
Well, on the immediate term, actually, people have been jubilant. We went out. It's different out here. Jane and I, we eat supper at 5 o'clock and start winding down by 7 or 8. Supper's just starting out here at 8, and you're not even getting back to your hotel until 10. And then in this part of town, it's just got a very vibrant nightlife. So the streets were just packed, and there's young people, and people were hitting the bars, hitting pizza places, just hanging out. And in talking to them, it really is. People, I don't think necessarily understand just how deeply it hurt this nation to have their citizens held hostage like that. And the bodies, which is very sacred to Jews. They must have those remains back. The families can't mourn until the remains are back. Everywhere you go, everywhere, there are signs saying bring them home. There's posters with the missing and killed hostages. So it's just with a great relief and celebration that the last, at least, of the living hostages are back. It really, really hurt them deeply. I don't think any are under the illusion that it's over, but this phase of it is over. And they're happy for that, and they really do, despite what some people think. They want peace. I'm speaking to IDF soldiers as well, guys who have been dealing with things in Gaza. They're young folks, they're conscripted essentially into the army. They felt true in their cause in being there, but they'd be more than happy to be just doing their patrols on the streets within Israel rather than going into Gaza and dealing with all that. So they're hoping that some form of lasting peace comes about, but the religious differences, the Islamist ideology, even if Hamas is gone, they do understand, another head of this ugly monster is going to rise up, and it just seems to be a cycle of battles. Hopefully in the long run, somehow somebody can figure out how everybody can kind of try to live together in this tight space with so many shared holy sites. But for the immediate term, actually, people are really happy. And they were just thrilled with Trump. Really? Because that's all they wanted, and it really does drive home what people have been saying for the last 2 years. If you want Israel to stop bombing Gaza, release the friggin' hostages. Release the hostages, release the hostages. You can't say it enough times. And sure enough, the hostages released, and guess what? IDF backed right up. They don't want to be there. They just wanted their people back.
Well,
So
yeah, well, that's good to hear an update
hope.
like that. That certainly is very positive. That's good to hear from somebody who's been on the ground there talking to these people.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of sadness and harsh things to see out here as well.
Well, it's kind of been around the world. There's been a lot of sadness about this for the last couple of years. So it's good to see that this is hopefully coming to an end. Cory, I won't keep you much longer. Thanks so much for your time here. Wish I could see you this weekend. When you come back into town, let's go for like a coffee or something so I can finally meet you in person, okay?
Absolutely. We're going to cross paths in person one of these days. It has to happen.
Yeah, well, people will know that you wanted to be there tonight as well at this event. I'm saying tonight because this is going to go up tomorrow morning, so it'll be past already.
Okay.
But of course, this weekend coming up on Saturday at the legislature, I know people know you want to be there. We wish you could be there as well. Be safe coming back, okay?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, John.
Okay, Cory Morgan from the Western Standard and the Cory Morgan Show. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share it as well, ring the bell for notifications. I'll see you in the next one.